And that's the point. Go be the trusted authority in your market. Just pick a channel that you're comfortable with, commit an hour a week. That's all I'm asking for. An hour a week. And if you can commit an hour in a week, here's what's sad, man. If you commit an hour a week to a channel, there's no way you're not an authority. It's actually easy. We all kind of like difficult. Everybody wants to be rocky. They're also trying to game the system. Stop asking yourself, how can I make people think I'm valuable? Instead, be valuable.
What is up, everybody? Suneet Agarwal here with another episode of the Reside Platform Podcast, and I am so stoked today for our guest. Not only is he a dear friend of mine, but he's, I think, one of the smartest people I know, and you make me way smarter every time I talk to you. I read you on social media. Guys, it's Kasam Aslam. Kasam, what's up?
Suneet, thanks for having me, buddy. I appreciate you.
Hey, just real quick, give everybody your little bio.
I built one of the top Google Ads agencies in the world. I sold it in 2022. The co-host of one of the top marketing podcasts in the world. I created one of the top traffic courses in the world. I am the co-founder of one of the top marketing masterminds in the world, and I'm very, very humble.
Yes, you are humble, actually. I mean, so the reason, besides wanting to hang out with you and just document another conversation, and besides building a bunch of content for social media, right? The main reason I wanted you on here was because I think you are the traffic expert, right? People going to sites and doing stuff that generates people money or leads or whatever, right? I mean, you're the host of the Perpetual Traffic Podcast. You had a Google Ads agency that did traffic, and I've never heard anybody with such a deep understanding of internet traffic like you. So us having so many realtors and real estate pros on, I thought it'd be a really helpful conversation.
Well, dude, I know the real estate space really well. For 7 years, I owned an agency that did nothing but sell motivated seller leads. And we had the highest performing real estate investment campaign in existence. And I can prove that because our biggest referral partner was one of the largest real estate investment CRMs. So I could see, and I don't know that I should have been able to see this, but because they were my buddies, I could see everybody else's lead gen, cost, acquisition, performance, etc. And nobody touched us for damn near a decade.
Yeah, it's huge. Huge. So tell people about, let's just jump right into it. Like, where should real estate professionals be looking for traffic? What should they be doing?
The problem with traffic is it's an organic market, just like any other organic market. So, let's say that, for instance, my wife makes artisan bread. She's Palestinian. She makes handmade Palestinian bread that her grandmother did. It's amazing. It's wonderful, right? It's so good. Here's the thing about making bread, though, is because we were they're so good. Everybody loved it so much. We had an idea for a little business for her mom on the side called Bethlehem Bread Company, because they're from Bethlehem.
Yeah.
And I did the math, and in order for her to make $15 an hour, you'd have to sell the bread for $10 a loaf. Here's what's interesting about that is bread, guess who owns all bakeries?
Big corporations.
BlackRock. Because bread is one of the highest margin products in the world. Because when you take wheat and turn it into flour, wheat you can buy for 5 cents a pound and flour is $5 a pound. And then when you take flour and turn it into bread you can buy for $5 a pound, and then that pound makes however many pounds of bread, and you can sell those for $5 a loaf. So the economies of scale for bread are insane. And yet, it would be impossible for my mother-in-law to have been profitable in the bread business. And the reason for that is because you have BlackRock printing bread in massive facilities with massive ovens and massive labor, and she could never buy the product or produce the product at a labor cost that would allow her to be financially viable. Here's why I give you that example. It's the perfect analogy for traffic. Opendoor, OfferPad, Zillow, all the rest of them, they're buying traffic and putting it in their big industrial ovens, and they can actually produce outputs at rates that smaller bakers, let's say, would never be able to touch in a billion years. So if you're looking for retail buyers and sellers, and you're in a market that Opendoor, OfferPad, Zillow, next door, et cetera, is touching. Yeah, which is basically, every major MSA and even some of the secondary and tertiary markets, you can't compete what I'll say above the line, right? So if somebody says, sell my house, don't go after that phrase, because the cost per click, and it's easy math. Let's say that the cost, and I'm just going to use round numbers for easy math.
Good.
Let's say the cost per click is $10 a click. By the way, it's probably way more than that in a right market. But let's say it's $10 a click, okay? That's a click. Somebody clicked on your ad. Now, what happened when they clicked? They got to your site, they got to your funnel, they got to whatever. Did they fill out a form? Did they call you? Probably not. Statistically, 98% of people don't. But let's say that you have an amazing site, an amazing offer, and out of 10 people that visit, one of them actually gets on the phone with you. Now, this assumes that you're good at answering your phone or good at lead intake, because chances are what happens is one of them fills out a form, and for every person who fills out the form, you end up connecting with 1 out of 5, right? But we're, again, easy math. So $10 a click, you get on the phone with 1 out of 10, that's $100 cost per lead. Now, out of how many people you get on the phone with, you end up with a listing, and so on and so forth. So you end up with this really easy algorithm, and you start to understand that when the actual cost per click on those phrases is in the 3 and 4 figures, there's no way for a residential realtor to compete against the big boys.
Yeah.
So what you do is you look at traffic. It's a bell curve. You look at the periphery. And the periphery of the bell curve, this is your artisan bread. This is things that the other ones aren't going to necessarily go after. And so you might do things that what we did when we were doing real estate lead generation is we looked for the catalytic moments that caused somebody to sell their house quickly, because our highest performing types of sales were sell my house fast for cash. And that meant something was wrong with the house. But that was still hyper competitive.
Sure.
So what you can do is you can go after, for instance, like probate, job loss, relocation, divorce, sickness, growing families, pregnancies. And when you begin to speak to people according to where they are in life, instead of trying to capture them at the moment of inflection, the inflection point is expensive because that's extreme bottom of the funnel. But if you move up the funnel and you're like, look, I know for a fact most people that have a baby buy a new house within 18 months, which I don't know, that's an old statistic. I think it's from 2019 or something, but it still has to be kind of true, right? Like there's something. So instead of going after buy a house, which is a phrase that you're just never going to be able to make viable, start looking for traffic and pockets of traffic, especially if you're in a small, if you're in Edina, Minnesota, which is where people move when they're in Minneapolis in order to raise a family, then you want to look at all the people on the periphery of Edina, and maybe now you have like a mommy blog for new moms, or you're buying traffic from the postpartum center, or, you're, you know what I mean? Like now you figured out your niche and where to go in order to serve your niche. Maybe you're in if you're in Arlington, Virginia, and it's nothing but military families and they're always moving, right? And you get orders to move, and what are you going to do? Well, going to sell my house, again, you're extreme bottom of the funnel. Go up in the funnel, talk to, and by the way, it's always the wife it's always the non-military spouse making that decision. So now you have like content or community for the spouse of service members and serving them in other ways that aren't even real estate related. And realtors know this better than anybody. Most realty marketing isn't about real estate. It's about community. But building those communities and finding where those communities exist as it pertains to your market. If you're in a geriatric market, it's probate. That one's a tough one. You're getting in front of people and you're like, by the way, when you die, when you die, I want to help with your house. But there are ways to do it with sophistication and elegance that aren't necessarily macabre. So that's my advice to realtors.
Like, what do I do if my parents need to go into hospice?
Dude, that's exactly right. Or in-home care. I think in-home care. Because the problem with in-home care is it's hard to navigate no matter what your financial situation is. If you're in a, we'll say middle class or lower area, it's near impossible. So if you just had a collection of resources, here's some government resources, grants you can apply for, ways to navigate this, what's acceptable, what's not, how to navigate Medicare, Medicaid, like all that. And none of that stuff you need to know. You have a podcast like this one and you invite experts. Yeah. And now you're helping people navigate this. And very often before people die, they downsize. And so you happen to be the trusted voice there. And that's the point. Go be the trusted authority in your market. And I hate to say this because it sounds so dismissive of the problem that people are facing, but the sad truth is it's not hard because everybody's chasing the immediate sale. This is the long game. If you're willing to invest in the long game, I live in Scottsdale Ranch. It's 85258 is the zip code in Scottsdale, Arizona. Kurt Warner lives here. He's right down the street from me. Like,
oh, that's right.
It's an affluent place. Here's what's interesting about it is there's not a single realtor in Scottsdale Ranch who has claimed Scottsdale Ranch. And it's such a thriving community. It's built on these artificial lakes. There are these big, beautiful parks. We have one of the most robust bike paths in the country.
Oh, cool.
Somebody who wanted to could have the Scottsdale Ranch YouTube channel, social channel, podcast, and become, and dude, Scottsdale Ranch is massive. I don't know how many doors are here, but it's like, it's a huge, 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 huge area. And cities are rife with those, right? I can rattle them off. And where I live, it's McCormick Ranch and DC Ranch. They're all ranches. Gainey Ranch.
Yeah.
But just go play. You can plant your flag. That doesn't mean that you only work here, but you plant your flag somewhere, and now you become the person who can say things like, oh, did you know the bike path at Scottsdale Ranch is X? Or did you know that there's actually a dual HOA inside of Scottsdale Ranch, depending on where you live, because some of the communities are gated and some of them aren't. And now, or did you know that the roofing that they used at the time that this community was built tends to be flawed because of that reason? And you learn that stuff because you're paying attention. And every time a home inspector goes through a house that goes into Scottsdale Ranch, you realize, gosh, I'm seeing this repetitive issue over and over and over again. Or the garage door installer that this home builder used was crap. Or what, like those little teeny tiny details that a good real estate agent picks up on when they've worked a market over time, nothing inspires more confidence. How could it? It's like, man, dude, you know your market. By the way, you want to be really careful around March because that's when the Phoenix Open is and traffic along this road gets really busy. So here's the back lane that I'd take. Sure, I'm working with a realtor and they told me something like that because otherwise I'm going to move into the house, get surprised and be like, oh, you know, I have to deal with this every year. But it's establish yourself as a trusted authority, serve the market where the market is. And then here's the worst part. You ready? It's a word everybody hates. Wait.
Play the long game, like you said.
You can't push a rope. You got to wait. And then people are going to, I've got a YouTube channel. It's how we built my Google Ads agency. I built the #1 ranked Google Ads agency on a YouTube channel that still is sub 50,000 subscribers, which in YouTube, adjusted for margin of error, is 0. So you don't need a lot of subscribers. If you had, there's a book that's phenomenal. It's a whole paradigm. It's called 1,000 True Fans. You just need 1,000 people. And every community is 1,000 people or more, right? And that's the people in the community, the people that maybe aspire to being in that community, and the people on the periphery of that community. Just go serve those people. And then over time, it's like, oh, dude, I listen to Suneet's podcast, and God, does he just give phenomenal. And when you live in a community, everything that happens in that community is pertinent to you. We had a grocery store go out of business. Albertsons bought Safeway or vice versa, and there was an Albertsons that was too close to a Safeway, and so they closed the Albertsons. And dude, the mayhem, Suneet, especially with the old people, like they were in, bro, pitchforks, and it was insane, but it was so important to them. And I see why, because when you get acclimated to a grocery store, like if you really think about it, we can all laugh about it and be like, just drive 5 minutes the other way. But where you go for your food on an anthropological scale is where you go to survive. Right. That's your water, you know, like that was the village's farm. Somebody just burned down the village farm, and we don't realize how important little things like that are. Yeah. So if there's a voice in the market and the real estate agent is the obvious choice, who's having these conversations, helping people navigate it, helping people identify alternatives. You know, my mom's a coupon cutter, and it's like, well, you know, because Albertsons closed, I go to Safeway for my meat, but I'm going to go to AJ's for my produce, and here are the reasons why. That's a conversation that my mother would be ravenous for. And the thing about people like my mom, too, and I think this is true for most.
And she's a baby boomer, which is our target market, right?
Oh, it's exactly right. And those people are loyal AF. If you don't believe me, go try to get them off of AT&T. Don't try to get them to switch from the worst phone service in existence. They can't. It doesn't compute in their mind. Because, but to their credit, man, because when you earn their trust and earn their loyalty, they'll never go anywhere else. And this is the way to do it, provide value. And dude, they're into podcasts. My mom's into YouTube. She's a hyper right wing, 700 Club Trumper. So like,
oh really?
Oh dude, she's all her conspiracy theories, and yeah, she thinks that Joe Biden is like an animatronic, not even real anymore. And she comes to me, she's like, you wouldn't believe what I saw on YouTube.
So that's a great segue. I'm an agent. Am I on YouTube or am I on?
Bro, go where you're most comfortable. So it's a tool. It's a Venn diagram. There's where Suneet's comfortable. Some people don't like being on camera, and if you don't like being on camera, then don't do YouTube because you have to be on camera. Then go do a podcast. Or some people don't like long form; they're more comfortable short form. Then go Instagram. Or some, you know what I mean? Like Go where you're comfortable. Some people really like to write. And, if that's the case, maybe you're Facebook or LinkedIn. So there's where you're comfortable and there's where your market is. 2 circles. Find out where those circles overlap, and those are your options. And if you're dealing with a super young audience, if you're smack dab in the middle of Austin, Texas, you have no choice but to be on Instagram, right?
Right.
Like, obviously. But for the most part, every market, and that's what's kind of cool too, is you might say, well, I know you're saying that nobody's captured Scottsdale Ranch, but somebody has captured my market. Well, then my question is where? Do they have the best podcast? Okay, then do a YouTube channel. Do they have the best YouTube? Then do an Instagram page. Do they have, do they do a Facebook group? Dude, the number of Facebook groups that are actually a problem for communities is really interesting, because a lot of HOAs don't get ahead of establishing their own Facebook group. Some rogue homeowner builds it without their participation, ends up actually owning the voice of the HOA, and it's not even an HOA-owned entity. You could do that. So it doesn't, I'm solution agnostic. You don't have to be, I'm not telling you it has to be a podcast, has to be a YouTube channel, has to be an Instagram. Go to where, dude, Nextdoor has the ability to build little communities inside of Nextdoor. I've never been inside of them. I've never played with them at all, but my wife is in them and they are robust. And there's little sewing circles and event groups, but that's the thing. Don't open, don't put Suneet Agarwal real estate agent group. Nobody wants to join that shit.
Sure, exactly.
You make it about whatever's most pertinent to your demographic. If you're dealing with a bunch of old people and you just helped them do nothing but orchestrate their pickleball, you're now a trusted resource. Right. And nobody else is willing to do that legwork. You're willing to do it. And every now and again, because it's going to come up organically, you can be like, oh yeah, I was talking to this guy, I was helping him sell a house, and now you've just planted that seed, and it's like, okay, this is the person that I trust.
Dude, and that's awesome. The solution agnostic part is great, because a lot of people feel like, I had Steve Sims on yesterday, right?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, I know, but we talked about you too. But Steve said,
he's my coach, by the way, if anybody's actually listening. I love him.
But so he was saying, you should be everywhere.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah,
I think that's true long term. I think while you're just getting started, pick a channel that you're really comfortable with, and then as you get comfortable, the content that you're producing in that channel becomes easy to repurpose and proliferate. So I'm not arguing with Steve at all. I'm just putting it in a chronological, accessible perspective. Because when somebody says, here's my experiences, when somebody says you should be everywhere, people go, yeah, I know it's like saying you should be fit. It's like, yeah, I know that's true, and someday I will be.
Right.
But if you can say, hey, here's the one thing that you can do right now to improve your fitness, the little hinge that swings the big door, all you got to do is drink more water. Well, I can drink more water.
Yeah.
Right? So just start with this one thing. It's like, dude, just pick a channel that you're comfortable with, commit an hour a week. That's all I'm asking for. An hour a week. And if you can commit an hour in a week, here's what's sad, man. If you commit an hour a week to a channel, there's no way you're not an authority.
Yeah.
If you're producing content, the amount of content you can create in an hour is insane. You'll never get through it. And if you spent an hour a week producing high quality content, you can't help but be an authority. And again, note I said high quality content, because some people really do just put out garbage, and they're trying to scale it, and they're trying to use AI, and they're trying to they're also trying to game the system. Stop asking yourself, how can I make people think I'm valuable? Instead, be valuable, right?
Crazy idea.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's like, oh, what is it that people want to hear? How can I trick them into thinking that I care? Or maybe we just care, so, and you can
preeminence,
tell the people,
bro. Preeminence. Take a fiduciary duty for everybody as if they are already a paying customer, and their success depends on your help.
I love that, dude. I just love people, man. It sounds weird and touchy-feely and whatever, but it's the root of every religious tradition, is treat other people the way that you want to be treated, and people can feel that. You can feel authenticity. Yeah. And that's what's really nice about social media, is it's really hard on a long-term scale to fake it. You know what I mean? Because you've never been this intimate. I've never in my life, again, just talking anthropologically, you and I, technically speaking, are, because of the detail I can see in your face and the amount that we speak, we are about 36 inches apart. Yeah. In the way that the human mind interprets proximity, right? when in your life, in the 2 trillion years of evolution, did people stand 3 feet apart for hours on end talking to each other? You know what I mean? The amount of like stimuli the amount of Suneet indoctrination that I have in my mind surpasses anything that I ever could have had pre-digitization. And so if you think about how close you hold your phone to your face, how often you listen to the thought leader's voice, you know what I mean? Like in sharing things too, the psychological impact of sharing content, you take ownership of the content that you share. So it becomes your voice, not theirs. And there's all these things that people don't understand how impactful they are. And it's such a powerful tool. And it's easy to use as long as, and this is the scary part, as long as you're not afraid of consistency. Yeah. That's the hard part, right? It's not difficult. It's tedious.
Yes.
Difficult's actually easy. We all kind of like difficult. Everybody wants to be Rocky. Eye of the Tiger's playing. I'm running up the stairs. I'm shadow boxing. That's fun. I don't want to do that every day, though. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to like jog every day. I'd rather Eye of the Tiger shadow box once and then be the champion than go out for a light jog every day. Yeah. But if you can do the light jog every day, that's where you're going to be successful with this stuff.
Dude, he says so much stuff. The one thing that I want to just have everybody listen to from you is you like totally multi-purposed, leverage the hell out of social content in 1 hour a day with your framework that you shared. I think I've heard you say it a bunch of times, but can you tell everybody the process, how you were able to make all that content in 1 hour per week?
Sorry. Yeah, 1 hour a week. And so neck on my face because I actually stopped doing it. And I stopped doing it because I'm going through a career change. I sold my business. I'm trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. But you can still go back and see this. And the only reason I stopped is because I don't know what to talk about anymore, dude. I don't know. I don't want to be a traffic guy. So that'll be another podcast today. You can coach me through. You can be my therapist and help me figure out what the next phase in evolution is for Kasim. Here's what you do.
I'm going through one of those too right now, so we can coach each other.
The next existential crises. Yeah. If you're ready to commit to a narrative, obviously, and if you're in real estate, you already know who you are. You know who you are. You know who your market is. 1 hour a week is a video. You shoot one video that traverses preferably 5 to 6 topics. That's one topic per 10 minutes. This is really easy to do in a podcast. So if you're afraid to do this by yourself, it's hard to do by yourself if you're not acclimated to it. So just go get a buddy or a guest or another realtor or a partner or whatever, write down 6 topics and then break them up, roughly speaking, into 10 minutes. If you have one that's 12 and one that's 8, that's fine. It's no big deal. But when you shoot an hour-long video over 5 or 6 topics, here's what you have. You have 5 to 6 videos that are 10 minutes long. Guess what that is? YouTube. YouTube wants 1 video a day. Algorithmically speaking, they're not going to prioritize you until you're producing 1 video a day. YouTube wants to see that you're producing a video every single day and that you're consistent. So you take this hour-long video, and you splice it into 10-minute long segments, and you have 1 video for every business day, Monday through Friday. And the YouTube, I learned this from Evan Carmichael, who's one of the world authorities in YouTube.
Yeah,
YouTube,
smart as hell, yeah.
You know, dude, he's brilliant. Yeah, he's part of Joe Polish's Genius Network. Really, really, really sharp guy.
He was on Driven the other day too, right?
Evan? He might have been. Yeah. Oh, no, you're thinking of Alric, heck.
Oh, yeah.
Alric's the paid YouTube guy. Evan's the organic YouTube guy.
Okay.
So Evan says that your videos have to be 10 minutes or more because YouTube wants long-term content. You need to have a 70% retention rate at the 60-second mark. And your call to action needs to be watch this next video, not do this thing. So you don't want to get them out of YouTube. YouTube wants retention inside of YouTube. So as you're producing more videos, just cross-link between your videos. You know, this video is talking about how to be active in the neighborhood, and this video is talking about where the parks are. Well, those two, that's a really easy cross-promote right there. So you've shot your hour-long video, and now you have a YouTube video for every single day. But you're not done, because you can take your hour-long video, you can strip the audio from it, and now you have your podcast. You're posting 1 podcast a week. Or if you wanted to split it into 2, you could have 2 podcasts a week, which I have heard from Hector Santesteban, who owns Amplify Media and is the producer for Perpetual Traffic, which is one of the top marketing podcasts in the world. He says,
go listen to it. It's great. I was on it, and it was incredible.
Yeah, you crushed that episode, too. It was great to hear from you.
Thank you.
Hector says that, and this is more anecdotal than it is data-driven, but he's seen with all the podcasts that he produces, and he produces some really big ones, that 2 episodes a week tends to perform better. So you take your hour-long video, you strip the audio, you splice the audio into 2. Now you have your podcast and you have your YouTube videos, but you're not done because you take the hour-long video and you transcribe the audio. Now with the transcription, you have 6 topics. That's potentially 6 blogs. Now, you're probably not all 6 of them are going to be blog worthy, but you have 6 potential blogs that you can go pump into ChatGPT and say, hey, here's the transcription on this particular topic, because I have 6 topics. Write me a blog or an article or whatever on these 2 or 3 that I really like, because 2 or 3 blogs a week is great. Like, that's a lot of content. Now, I wouldn't recommend publishing the ChatGPT output wholesale. I like to use it to give me the framework, and then you go through and make it more your voice. It's your voice because it was your audio clip, and then make it more your voice when you've written it. But now I've got my podcast, my YouTube channel, my blogs, and then what I can do is I can sew all that together in an email newsletter. So I put an email newsletter once a week, and I can say, hey, Suneet, in case you didn't catch it, here are all the videos that we shot. Here's the podcast that we put out. Here's the blogs that we put out. And that content is written itself because it's just the titles of the other content. So it's like a repository to go look at everything else that you're doing. So now I have a podcast, a YouTube channel, an email newsletter, and a blog, but you're not done. You take your YouTube clips and you splice them into 7, 15, 30, 90-second shorts. And you put those on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Those become
YouTube Shorts, right?
Oh, dude, yeah. God, egg on my face for even forgetting that one. YouTube Shorts.
Take those Twitter, Threads, all of them, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to get to the Twitter threads at the very end, but yeah, those short form videos are the most engaging early stage content you can possibly have. When you see people on socials, watch them. It's just their thumb. It looks like they have Parkinson's, and they're just shaking their thumb. It's this thumb friendly content. And when they see your face often enough, and you're just cutting them up into quick little snippets, that's the thing that'll stop them and be like, oh, I kind of like that guy. And then they dive down the rabbit hole and they start looking for your longer form content. I personally like to point all roads back to either my YouTube channel or my podcast, because long form is where I go to build the relationship. Short form is where I go to earn the relationship. But the problem with that is I'm never going to have your attention longer than 60 seconds.
Yeah.
So I want to push you, and everybody does this. Hormozy does this really well. Tony Robbins does it. Dean Grass. All the big names use short form to capture your attention, long form to keep your attention. And then what you just said too is really smart. You take your 6 clips, and each one of those becomes a Twitter thread. And then you can put your Twitter threads on Threads. And you've just proliferated the entirety of the internet with an insane amount of content. And you did it with an hour a week and a system, because you can't, like, you need a VA or somebody to do the nitty gritty work, right? The slice.
Sure.
That stuff. So I'm not saying there's not additional work beyond the hour, but once the system is built, that you shouldn't be doing this yourself ever. And I'm really bullish on that. So many entrepreneurs, you think about the 4 columns. There's the $5 an hour work that you do, the $50 an hour work that you do, the $500 an hour work that you do, and the $5,000 an hour work that you do. And your job is to push all of your work into the further columns. So anything that's 5, you delegate. And you should be delegating that automatically. And if you don't have somebody to pawn that off on, that's step number 1 for you. Go find yourself a resource. And that can be
and get a VA.
Dude, no question. 100%.
Yes.
Yeah, you can get a VA in the Philippines for $500 a month, $250 part-time. And the amount, if you can't justify that expense, you're not really in business. If you cannot justify that expense, you don't really have a business yet. And I'm not being accusatory. You might be early, right? You might be starting out. But if you monetize any amount of your time, paying somebody 20 hours a week for $250 a month, you should be able to find a way to give them stuff that lets you do higher value stuff.
100%.
And your job is to coach your VA to move from, because most people think VAs are only capable of $5 an hour work. Nothing could be true, further from the truth. I have resources that are capable of $5,000 an hour work. I have people that work for me. One gentleman in particular, Yvonne. You've met Yvonne.
Yeah, stud. I just talked to him this week.
He's built entire businesses. He was my VA. He's a kid in the Ukraine. He's actually going to school in Poland. I hired him for $1,000 a month full time. He's now my business partner in things. Like, he's ascended, but he's built literal businesses from the ground up for me that I have had I've just said, hey dude, I'm right now I'm buying and selling mini storages. And I said, hey dude, I want to buy and sell mini storages the same way we bought and sold other properties. Build me the front end website, the back end website, the funnel, the CRM, all the ads. Yvonne did literally literally, Suneet, I did nothing in this business. We just bought a mini storage for $400,000 that's worth $700,000 retail.
Boom.
I made $300,000 off of the back of this kid who I taught hey, here's how I do business. You go do those things. He started doing my $5 an hour work, ascended to my $50 an hour work, ascended to my $500 an hour work, ascended to my $5,000 an hour work. And now he's pushed even further. He and I are full partners. It's me, Yvonne, and another guy named Jason. We each own a third of a recruiting business creating VAs for people. And Yvonne was just some kid I found in Poland. And these people, by the way, are everywhere. Eastern Europe, East Asia, North Africa, Latin America. Like, you can find unbelievable talent. You just have to believe that they're there and be patient.
What a segue. Could we have planned that? I don't know. The reason why I'm laughing is off air. Like, I think one of Kasam's superpowers is, leveraging talent internationally and not limiting himself to just the Philippines, right? Like, when you first told me about getting international employees in Canada, like, who thinks of that shit, right?
Canadians are amazing, because if you pay $50K US, it's like paying 65 to 70 Canadian, depending on the monetary policy at the time. They're not worried about healthcare at all, which is a huge concern for US employees.
Yeah.
It's cold. All they have to do is work. And they're friendly.
They speak the language.
Everybody thinks they're American. You know what I mean? You can't tell between an American and a Canadian. So if you have clients, and this is where things get awkward, but this is the natural, this is a conversation you have to have as an entrepreneur. I just talked to you about my mom, right? My mom is hardcore Southern Trumper. I can't put my mom on with my Filipino VA, because for her, it's just, you know what I mean? Or somebody that has my dad's accent. Like, she just would not compute. But I could put her on with a Canadian. She'd love the Canadians, because the Canadians to her basically red, white, and blue. It's like, you're the 51st state anyway. So know your customer. If you're dealing with the conservative type, and here's where things get really interesting too, to get even more racist. The conservatives are repelled by Asian and East Asian accents. South Asian, they just can't stand them. They're fine with the Latin accent. And I think this is new. I think this is 5 to 6 years old. But I can take a call center in Latin America and I can have them reach out to conservative people, and they're way more accessible to that accent than they are to Asian and East Asian for whatever reason. Whatever, you can call it prejudice or racist, or I don't care what it is. It's just data to me. I'm mildly autistic. I don't get offended at it. I'm South Asian by heritage. Man. People don't return my emails because they see a weird name in the inbox. That's fine.
Totally. Yep.
It's just data, right? And so we're going to contend with the data accordingly. So go to the geography. I like Latin America the best. I like Latin America because they work our time zones. They're wildly accessible from a financial perspective. You can really change people's lives by paying them way more than their market is willing to pay, but you still save a ton of money. They're generally Christian countries, and so the holidays are aligned, which ends up being really, really important.
Super important, yeah.
Oh, dude, I've got 50 some odd employees in India, and man, Indians have all the holidays. You got it. They celebrate everything, and none of them align with our holidays. So when I'm working, they're not. When they're working, I'm not. So Latin America has been a godsend. I'm going to Argentina in 7 days. We're starting a whole recruiting agency, and I'm starting in Argentina, but I'm gonna do all of Latin America. I'm really excited about it, man. And the impact you have on people's lives is insane.
Dude,
take somebody who could
people's lives, dude.
Oh, the average Argentinian right now is making $200 USD. Wow. They're gonna make as VAs well over $1,000 USD. Imagine making 5 times what your peers make. 5 times what your peers make. It's insane.
And you were saying something about, like, aren't most of people in Argentina like college educated? Like,
so it's one of the highest
financial person that you hired. Yeah.
Yeah. My personal financial analyst. I made a bunch of money. The worst thing you can do to poor people is give us money, right? Like, I was raised by a blind single mother, dude. And all of a sudden I made like a tax relevant sum of money when I exited my business, and nobody ever taught me financial literacy. So I went off and I did. Everybody that you give money to thinks they're an investor. So I've got 20 doors in North Dakota, and I'm in a bunch of real estate syndications, and I bought a bunch of random, and I'm like, I don't know where my money is, if I'm making money, how it's performing. So I hired this guy out of Argentina. He's a college professor. He's an economics professor, and he's a college professor, kind of moonlight, and he works for me full time. And he went through and he broke down my entire financial life. And he's like, here's and what's crazy about it, dude, is this stuff I never would have been able to figure out by myself. Of the 20 doors that I own in Fargo, North Dakota, I'm actually crushing it on, except for one house. There's one house that's dragging my entire portfolio down. And he was able to identify that. And now I can work with my property manager on figuring out. So, and dude, he's amazing. He's amazing. Argentina produces, it's the highest number of college graduates per capita in Latin America. It's one of the highest in the world. More economists are coming out of Argentina than any other country in the world.
Crazy.
And sadly, ironically, and it's probably why they produce so many economists, their economy has been destroyed by horrible government.
Yeah, literally destroyed. Like policy around financial stuff has been just like, go and Google it. It's horrible, right?
Horrible.
Like,
horrible. Dude, that's the thing, is you could literally change people's lives. Like, hire out of Argentina, you get somebody who's motivated, hardworking, intelligent, English speaking, and the what they can perform for you, it's unparalleled. I hate to say that, but what other resource do you have that could be so cost effective and so productive?
Yeah. I mean, dude, you were able to build and scale how many businesses that were worth a lot of money with?
Dude, I did an 8-figure exit. Off of, I say this hopefully not predatory, because I'll defend myself in a moment. I did an 8-figure exit off of the backs of people in emerging nations. I had almost 100 employees all around the world. And when I sold my business, I gave more money. I'll put this in writing, dude. I will have I don't care who. I'll have one of the big 5 accounting firms come do an audit and swear under oath. I gave more money to my employees, both as a percentage of what I sold for and in total, than anybody I've ever known in my entire life.
Huge. And you know a lot of people who have done big exits.
Oh, dude, I know. And everybody's been pretty generous. Because I know what these people did for me, they basically got paid out like significantly shared partners. And it was the most fun I've ever had in my entire life, dude. I got to play Father Christmas. I've got an employee.
People's lives.
Dude, yeah, there's a young man in India, and it's not just the exit money that he got. It's like he gets paid 9x what one of his peers would be made. He also manages my biggest client, my only publicly traded client. He bought his parents the first home the family's ever owned.
Huge.
Bought himself a motorcycle. Like, these people are, in South Asia especially, getting married is huge, and it's a massive expense. But it's so important culturally. There are people that have been able to fund marriages that couldn't fund marriages. I had an employee that needed, his wife needed IVF, and they couldn't afford it. I was able to pay for their IVF.
Yeah, dude.
There's so many, and the impact that you have, it goes both ways. Like, these folks made me, dude. I couldn't have done what I did. I had 40% margins when I sold. Agencies aim at 15. I had 40. Like, unreal margins. So they helped me and I helped them. It's just such an amazing place to be. It's such a synergistic environment to put yourself in.
Yeah, dude, you're dropping fire, right? Like, makes me wonder, if I want to get international contractor to help me in South America, where should I look?
I'm starting a recruiting agency now. We're limited in terms of inventory because everybody has to go through a pretty robust training. If you want to work with me, you can go to ParetoTalent.com. Pareto, spelled
Pareto, good.
Pareto distribution, right? Yeah. So ParetoTalent.com. Here's my disclaimers. I'm going to be really expensive. So there's still a cost efficiency to working with me, but I'm hiring only the best of the best. I'm training them up, and you're hiring me as a proxy, so you're paying my profit margins, let's say.
Sure.
If you don't want to do that, if you want to do it yourself, God bless you, by the way, you can still find amazing, amazing people. You just got to jump through some hoops. Dude, the best place to look is LinkedIn. Really? All of Latin America is neck deep in LinkedIn. So go put a LinkedIn job posting on, choose your country and do the research on the country based off of the proficiency you want. Brazil is great for engineers. Colombia is great for creatives. Argentina is great for economists. Now, every country is going to have other people too, right? Like, you don't want to stereotype in its entirety, but there are some truths behind the idea that there are pockets of talent in places, generally based off of what the universities specialize in. So depending on who you want and what you want, Mexico is great for social media manager, dude. My social media manager, Ari, is in Mexico. She's phenomenal. Go put ads out on LinkedIn. There was a website called Remote Co. They've changed their name now. But remoteco.com, it forwards, what does it forward to? I haven't used it. Hold on. Remote Co is now Pros Marketplace. So yeah, go to prosmarketplace.com. It's remote specifically for Latin American talent. I have actually found more luck on LinkedIn than I have here, which is why I stopped using it, but it was pretty good too. But dude, I love Latin America. If you don't need them to work your time zone, I really like the Philippines. The problem with the Philippines is the whole world rushed to the Philippines, and I've noticed the last couple of years it's kind of run dry on talent. And that's good, good for them, like great for them. But major corporation, T-Mobile put all their customer service in the Philippines.
For sure.
So did Google. So like all of a sudden, there's just a lot of access that they have to other opportunities. I really like India. India's hard first of all, there's more cultural nuance out of India and Philippines than there is out of Latin America. And understanding cultural nuance is really, really, really important. Like the Filipinos, for instance, have a very difficult time with direct feedback and negotiations because it's a very, very, very polite culture. And they're obsessive with family things, and so asking them to work off hours is tough. They're getting better at it because there's so many BPO companies there. But understanding cultural nuances is really important. If you want the best engineers in the whole world, go Eastern Europe. Dear God in heaven. But expect them to argue with you about everything and to be very, very, very blunt. And they refuse to do anything wrong. If you come to them and say, hey, I know technically speaking this should be a square, but the client wants it to be a circle, so just make the square a circle, they won't do it. They won't do it. They refuse. There's like a commitment to principles out of Eastern Europe that you're not going to see anywhere else in the world, to the point to where they'll lose business over it. But understanding the cultural nuances is really important. But dude, I think LinkedIn is great. I don't like Upwork at all for finding full-time employees. I like it a lot for finding people who want to do a gig. Like if I just hate problem solved, I'll go to Upwork. Freelancer is pretty good if you're looking to hire out of South Asia. I've gotten some full-time employees off of that. That's actually where I found Yvonne, who was in Poland at the time. And the other thing too is look at job boards. Or look at, if you use a specific CRM, let's say you use InvestorFuse because you're a real estate agent, go look at the InvestorFuse Facebook group or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there. If you use High Level, dude, there's like, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people in the High Level group, and most.
Oh, no shortage.
Yeah. So you can find, dude, the resources exist, but you got to pay them more than they're used to being paid, treat them like real humans, and you'll find yourself in a situation where they want to stick it out with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just to prove your point, we were talking sometime and you were talking about LinkedIn. So I went to Venezuela and put like a free job ad up.
Yeah.
Because Venezuela also has a bad economy, right?
Oh, dude, it's
horrible. So I said, let me just go here. I forgot what I was looking for. And bro, I got so many resumes. It was like,
yeah. Venezuela scares me a little because it's actually like you can go too far almost. Venezuela's gotten so bad that their infrastructure's shaky. So like their power and internet goes out consistently. So you kind of want, somewhere in the middle to where there's still the ability for arbitrage, but it's not so bad that they're not going to be able to perform.
Well, dude, this was fire. This was so good and left me thinking with so much. We could talk for hours. I know you got to go. If people want to follow you or learn more about you or work with your VA company, where should they go?
ParetoTalent.com for the VA company. If you want to follow me, you can go to Kasim.me, Kasim.me, and that'll link you to, that's where my podcast, my website, how to hire my traffic agency, all that stuff. That's my little short link.
Yeah, good. Well, Kasim, thank you, dude. I'm just happy to see you, homie. So good. And hopefully some of our listeners got something out of it. I know I did. And I talk to you all the time. So if you're a listener or viewer and you got something out of it, make sure to share with a friend. Go check out some of the other podcast episodes that we talked about, and we'll see you in the next Reside Platform podcast.